American Eagle did something bold and innovative that has the potential to revolutionize the advertising game as we know it. They chose to hire someone hot to wear their new blue jeans. This is a wild strategy that we haven't seen deployed in a very long time. In fact, I can't recall the last time I saw an advertising campaign that didn't prominently feature someone fat, disabled, or trans. It's refreshing. But if I was American Eagle, I'd be very careful. You run a real risk of alienating one of the largest demographics in the United States, ugly liberal women. But I guess that's okay. You don't want them wearing your jeans anyway. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Okay, hello, everybody. Welcome. We have three topics that we're going to talk about this week. We're going to be talking about the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle advertising campaign backlash. We're going to be talking about starvation in Gaza. And we're going to be talking about the destruction of Media Matters. I don't know, before we get into any of that, could anyone tell? I did 4 or 5 takes of the intro before I found one I could use. I could not get through without laughing. I don't know if anyone else is going to find it nearly as funny as me, but when I was writing it, I was laughing to myself. And as I was trying to read it, I couldn't get past that ending without cracking up. It took me a number of tries. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. I'm sure some people are going to be mad, but learn to take a joke. It's fine. Anyway, before we get into any of the topics for the week, as always, my favorite comment from last week. Last week, this comes from Jose. Nope. Wow, that's bad. I read Jose, didn't finish the word. Joseph Sabino, 252, who said, quote, "Oh man, are you trying to use logic with a woman? Have fun in hell, my brother." End quote. Joseph Sabino, not Jose P.H. Sabino. Joseph, how rude of you, man. Women can use logic, and when they do, they often win the Nobel Prize. At least there's been one that I can think of. So right there, your argument's flawed. One woman I know can use logic, and there are plenty of smart women out there. They're just more neurotic than you are, and that's okay. It's fine. We don't all have to be the same in everything. There are plenty of guys I know who pretty illogical. Actually, a little divergent here. I was having a talk with somebody probably, a month ago now. And we were talking about, is there a difference between men and women and how smart they are? And I was saying, no, actually the data doesn't support this at all. Men and women basically have the same IQ when you look at it. But the bell curve is shaped differently. And basically when you look at it, I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. Basically, for women, if you look at the bell curve, it kind of has a real high peak in the middle and then comes down. And the men, it's a little narrower, a little more spread out like that. And what it says is the average is about the same. Women really peak in the middle, and men are a little more spread out. So what this really means is that women tend to stay around the average, and you have these extremes on the other end. You might have some dumb women and some smart women, but women stay around the average. And men are more spread out, which means what? And think about your own personal life when I say this, because I will promise you it's almost guaranteed to be true. The smartest person you know is probably a man. And the dumbest person you know is probably also a man. And that's why it's because they're just a little more spread out. It doesn't mean that on the average they're smarter. It just means that the very ends of the extreme, men tend to be smarter, and men also tend to be way dumber. And that's okay. It's fine. We're not exactly equal, but the average is about the same. But it was a funny joke, Joseph, and I appreciate what you're doing there. And, if the WNBA used logic, or if the players union used logic, they would be accepting what they're getting. But anyway, I saw a bunch of people got upset about my take on this. As though I'm some sort of shill for the owners league. I don't care if the WNBA exists at all. I don't. But I'm just saying, you get what you're worth. Put people in the stands if you want to make more money. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, thank you, Joseph, for the comment. Let's move on. Topic 1, Sydney Sweeney and her good genes. This is an insane controversy. I don't understand it. I mean, I do, but I don't. I do, and I don't. And I think we're going to start, before I give any context, any background, I want you to look at the ad. So American Eagle put up a bunch of ads. They put up on Instagram, looks like, I think it was 11 or 12 posts with Sydney Sweeney. And here's one of them. I'm just going to play it so that you understand what we're talking about before we get into it. Here you go. poster, it's her on the wall, and it says, "Jeans changed the G to the J. So jeans to jeans. And it says Sydney Sweeney has great jeans. That's the best name. So they did a bunch of these. They had a bunch of posts. You can just look at a couple of them real quick. So, here's her wearing some denim, and here's her wearing some men's pants. I don't necessarily understand this one, but here's her doing things, just being Sydney Sweeney, which means being good looking and making some posts. Oh, I guess they did more than I thought. So it looks like they had 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14. They had 4. Oh, I don't know if that's her actually. 13. So they had 13 posts with Sydney Sweeney over the last week where she's wearing a jean jacket. Sometimes she's wearing men's pants for some reason and just looking like Sydney Sweeney, which means looking attractive and modeling blue jeans. The comments in these videos are absolutely insane. They're so crazy. And I don't understand the controversy here. I didn't understand. I didn't even know what people are talking about. They're upset with the word play jeans to jeans, the G to the J, saying that this is a crazy thing to do and it's pro-eugenics. And here, I pulled up an example. So you don't think this is just me making it up. Here we go. I want you to listen to some of these people and then we'll talk about it. This was posted by Dan Crenshaw, who is a congressman out of Texas. He posted this compilation video. So here we go. Listen to this.
We need jeans ad, so I went and saw it. That's Nazi propaganda. Wow. Propaganda.
This person,
I thought it was going to be
glasses,
like
tattoo was all over the neck,
kind of
septum piercing for those of you just listening.
That's going to be in history book.
I will be the friend that's too woke because those Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ads are weird. Like fascist weird. Like Nazi propaganda weird. Would we be surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making fascist propaganda like this? Probably not. But it's still really shocking. Like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. Like, that is Nazi propaganda.
If you haven't fully comprehended how bad it is, I need you to open your fucking eyeballs and listen. This is Nazi shit. Pure Nazi shit. Saying that a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl has good genes is Nazi shit. Saying anybody has good genes is eugenics. Blonde hair, blue-eyed, Nazi shit. This pro-Americana bullshit talking about pure Americans having good genes. This is Nazi shit that people, especially Jews, have been warning about for a very long time. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Jeans is just a play on jeans. Shut the fuck up. This is Nazi shit.
Sydney Sweeney's jeans ad is giving ethnic state propaganda. It is giving dystopian. It is giving 1940s Germany. And they could have had her said anything. She could have just said, I'm hot, drink my bathwater, here are my jeans. But instead they had her say, genes are passed down from parents to children. I have good genes. My jeans are blue. Why? Yeah, no, that was like the most thinly veiled propaganda I think that I've ever seen. I hate it.
You guys are complaining about that, Sydney.
Okay. All right. So first of all, can we just agree? Just look at them. For those of you who are just listening, it's hard. I described them. A couple septum piercings, obviously. Just discount everything they say. It's a good rule of thumb. Just stay away from those people like a bull. You septum piercing. You put them on a bull. You don't really go hang out with a bull. Don't hang out with people with the septum piercing. Listen, I know some people who have their septum pierced. It's fine. It's fine when you're a child in high school. It's fine. But if you get to be like a 35-year-old woman with your neck tattoos and your septum piercing getting upset about American Eagle ads, you've made mistakes in life. I'm just telling you, you've done some things wrong. And you really need to examine your choices. All right, so don't listen to them. But also you can see what I'm talking about. These are just crazy people. Crazy, crazy, crazy people. You read some of the comments on the video, and these are some of the comments on the American Eagle page. You'll say, what in the white is this? Or it's giving subtle 1930s Germany vibes. Or dang, only white jeans allowed? ? So it's just, is this a real controversy? I don't think it is. I don't necessarily believe it is. I think this is a bit of a manufactured controversy in that maybe the internet is just full of crazy people. But I'll tell you that there is something to this, that people just, they can't, if you look at an ad and you ask yourself this about this controversy. Just pretend that you're looking at this Sydney Sweeney ad and you're saying to yourself, this is Nazi propaganda. Okay, let's say that that's true. Let's just pretend for a second. Imagine the process that went into putting this ad up. One, you have to believe in Nazi-like things. You have to believe in eugenics. You have to believe in maybe an Aryan race. You have to believe in something like this. You have to want this. If you're going to make propaganda for something, you have to believe in it. So you have a person who believes blonde hair, blue eyes is best, or being white is the best, or that eugenics is a good idea, or that Nazis had a point. You have someone who believes this. That person then rises in the advertising world to be a big deal. They then get a contract with American Eagle, and they say, I've figured it out. They then recruit Sydney Sweeney into their fold, and they not only design this campaign to promote Nazi propaganda, they then sell it to American Eagle, recruit Sydney Sweeney. Everyone in the room is either oblivious or complicit in it, and then all of a sudden, they make this giant national campaign for this billion-dollar company. Are you crazy? Do you think that is actually what happened? What do you think? You think that you're maybe just reading too much into this, or that scenario, which is about the only way this happens, that scenario is likely? What do you think? Do you think that happened? Do you think that, one, there's a lot of Nazis who are working in advertising for American Eagle, or that there's just a bunch of Nazis in the American Eagle marketing department who decided that, hey, what we really need to do is promote white, ethnocentric eugenics to our customer base, and we'll use Sydney Sweeney to do it? Or is it possible that somebody in the advertising marketing world said, hey, Sydney Sweeney is one of the biggest stars in the world right now. She's really good looking. A lot of people think so. Maybe we should recruit her for an ad. And then someone said, oh, you know what'd be funny? Because she's so good looking, we could make a play on our new denim collection, because you could go jeans and jeans, because Sydney Sweeney has good jeans, because she's a really good looking, ridiculously attractive model actress that people fantasize about. You say, oh, what about that? Because she has good genes. No. Obviously, they meant good genes because she's white. Because she has blonde hair and blue eyes. Obviously, that's what they meant. You're a crazy person. I don't know what to tell you. I can't take people like this seriously, because you cannot sit there and tell me that is the scenario, that there are so many, that Sydney Sweeney, by the way, is complicit in this. She can't be just so naive that she's saying, oh, yeah, this is obviously a promotion of, I don't know, racism, white supremacy, and she just is totally oblivious to it. No, obviously it was sold to her the way I'm describing it. Hey, Sydney Sweeney is selling her sex appeal. That's what she does. That's what she does in movies. That's what she's doing in this advertising campaign. They're using sex to sell things, which it works. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm saying that it works. And all of a sudden that they said, hey, we're going to make this play. And she said, oh, that's cool. Whatever. That's fine. Pay me my money. And that's good. I just think that these people are crazy. And I don't think that this actually is a controversy. And what I mean by that is the people on the internet, these nut jobs, they don't represent people, because the middle of the country, the majority of the country winds up somewhere in the middle. They lean right, they lean left, but they're not people who get upset about the American Eagle blue jeans ad. They're not that person. So when you read the comments on Instagram under the American Eagle things, what you'll see is a bunch of people who are deriding this is the death of woke, or saying, American Eagle, you stand up to cancel culture, or don't bow to the mob. And then you'll see a bunch of comments about racism, and you'll see all this stuff. Everyone on both sides of that argument is way too online. I'm just telling you. Like, I'm not sitting here saying this is a great thing. I'm really not. I was making jokes in the intro, and I'm saying in the show, I don't really care. I don't think it's advertising jobs to sell us products. It's not their job to preach to us. If you're getting your morality from the American Eagle ad, one way or the other, you're doing it wrong. So when you see body positivity, when you see inclusive ads, I think to myself, it's just silly. It's just silly to me, because I don't look at a product and say, well, it's a good thing this fat one-handed gypsy can wear it, and then I also know at least that they're inclusive. I don't care. I don't care who can wear it. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Because this idea that representation is important, I'm like, I guess. I don't know. Maybe. If you're saying it is, that's fine. But I've never looked at a product that has, I don't know, some black dude on the cover selling it and thought, God, I'd buy it. If only there was a white guy selling it to me, I'd buy this product. No one thinks like that. No one really does. It's silly. It's dumb. don't get your morality from advertising one way or the other. Don't get it from corporations. That's a bad thing. And this is insane. It's just an insane thing. I can tell you one thing. Based on all of the comments that I saw and all the videos and the little compilation, ugly people hate this ad. That's the one thing I could say. That's my joke. I always try to make a distinction, or at least I try often. I won't say always. I try to make a distinction a lot of the times between leftists and liberals because in a lot of ways, I'm still a liberal. I consider myself a liberal for most of my life. And most of the things that I believe are still what I consider liberal values. So I don't think liberals are crazy people. I poke fun, but it's fine. Leftists are nuts. Leftists are crazy. And they do not have a rational worldview. They do not have a grounded philosophical basis that is based in reality. And they get upset at American Eagle ads. So when I look at those people on there, I know in the intro I said ugly liberal women, but that's only because it's more funny. It's just funnier that way. It has nothing to do with me just attacking all liberals. I think that leftists and ugly people really hate this, and that's fine. I don't care. And I don't think American Eagle should care because I don't think those are the people who are buying your product anyway. Look at that chick with the septum piercing and the red hair and the neck tattoos. She's not wearing American Eagle jeans. I'm just guessing. She still looks like she's a 30-year-old who shops at Hot Topic, which, again, question your life choices if you're a 30-year-old shopping at Hot Topic. Anyway, we are going to – this is, by the way, I think the funniest thing about this entire thing is that they are doing this limited edition blue jean jacket. Sydney Sweeney has a limited edition blue jean jacket called the Sydney – what's it called? The Sydney Jean. The Sydney Jean. And she's selling this limited edition jacket, and part of her entire campaign with American Eagle – is that the proceeds from this jacket in particular are going to a crisis text line, which is a nonprofit that is dedicated to mental health support for people going through hard times. So she's literally doing this. I'm not doing the whole ad, but doing part of this for charity, for mental health, and people are ripping the whole campaign. It's just dumb all around. Anyway, we don't have time here to just talk about Sydney Sweeney. Listen, I understand she's good looking. You want to talk about her and think about her some more, but we have to move on to other things. Way less sexy things. So let's get into topic 2, starvation in Gaza. Talk about a transition right there. That was rough. Anyway, it's been a while since we've talked about the war in Israel. And I think it's important because it's been a while. Let's recap. Hey, remember that time when a bunch of terrorists kind of paraglided and drove through the fence and broke into another country and killed over 1,000 Jews in a single day? Remember when that happened? I know it's been a couple years and maybe you've forgotten, but let's remember when this war started. It's a war. There's a war going on, and it doesn't affect you if you live in the United States. I get it, because except maybe some of your tax money is going to Israel, and you maybe have forgotten that every day for the last few years they've been fighting a war in the Middle East. And it's important to remember that Israel didn't start this war. Hamas, a terrorist organization, started this war by being genocidal terrorists who do what genocidal terrorists do, which is killed a lot of Jews. That's what they do. And that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do tomorrow. That's what they wanted to do 10 years ago. That's what they'll want to do today, tomorrow, and 5 years from now until they're destroyed. That's kind of their deal, is they want to kill all the Jews. So it's important we remember that, because now what's happening is it's been a couple years. There is a starvation crisis in Gaza. This is a real thing. There are people starving in Gaza, and everyone in the world wants to blame. Well, I mean, it's hard to say. Who are they going to blame? Who do they tend to blame for all their problems on both the left and in the Muslim world and on the horseshoe right? You know, it winds up being blamed on the Jews. What do you know? Go figure. So they're blaming Israel. They're blaming Netanyahu's government. They're saying that Israel is intentionally starving people in Gaza. Is this true? If it is true, that is terrible. That is a terrible thing, and we would condemn Israel. We would condemn people for doing that. Using starvation as a tactic against civilians is not a good thing. So is it happening? No, it's not. And if you think it is, I'm just telling you, we're going to explain why you are mistaken. It is not happening. It's not Israel's fault. It's not that starvation isn't happening. It's that the chain of events that has led to this starvation crisis in Gaza is not because Israel hasn't been trying to get aid to the people in Gaza. So why is it happening then? So Israel's fighting a war, as we have said. They are also, and have been for years, shipping millions of pounds of food into Gaza. So think about this just in the abstract for 1 second. Israel is fighting a war against a terrorist organization that has embedded itself in a civilian population. So instead of leveling the entire place to the ground to kill all their enemies, they have fought an incredibly deadly campaign against a terrorist organization that uses civilians as hostages. That's what's happening. And part of that is they have tried their best, and I do believe this, they have tried their best to stop from killing civilians when they can. Now, sometimes Hamas fires rockets from schools and hospitals, or they embed themselves. There was a hospital that was big news because they said, oh, Israel hit this hospital with a rocket, and they killed a bunch of people. And then it turned out, hey, guess what? When Hamas took a bunch of hostages, Israelis hostages, they took them to the hospital, and there were actually tunnels in the hospital that led to the terrorist tunnels underneath Gaza. So you say, Hamas knows what they're doing. They control that place. They do whatever they want, and they've embedded themselves in a civilian population. So Israel is fighting this war against them. They have shipped food in. What does Hamas do? Hamas steals the food. They take the food. They then sell the food back to the people. They use it to supply their fighters first. Then they sell it to the people of Gaza to raise money so that they can fund their terrorism. That's what's happening. And when I say Israel is shipping food in, this is true. They've shipped 4,500 trucks in the last week. That includes 2,500 tons of baby food and high-calorie food for children. They are shipping food in. Now, they were upset because there was a blockade from May. So May, there was a month-long blockade. Then they kind of relaxed it a little bit because what's happening is when Hamas steals the food and then they sell the food, they use those funds to further the war against Israel. So Israel cut down on the amount of aid being sent into Gaza, not to starve people, but to see what would happen to Hamas and to try and cut off some of their funding. So Israel made a move because their funding, they actually could see this. Hamas started to lose money. They didn't have money to pay their fighters. They didn't have money to secure weapons. We know for a fact that what was happening was the UN, which is an arm of Hamas, the group that is working in Gaza from the UN, is actually working in league with Hamas, which is, again, the terrorist organization, and they were basically supplying food from the UN to Hamas. So Israel said the UN isn't going to ship food in there because what they're doing is actually funding our enemy combatants, which they're not supposed to do. They're supposed to be politically neutral. So the U.S. has backed a new group that has been created called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is working with the U.S. They're working with Israel to distribute food to the actual people of Gaza, the actual Palestinians, instead of giving it directly to the terrorists who Israel is fighting. And what started happening is that there have been 1,000 people killed, they say, since that the aid has started to go through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And why that is the case is because Hamas, they don't want this thing to exist. They want the UN to ship in the food so they can steal the food so they can make the proceeds. So they have been attacking the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, forcing Israel and the U.S. or the U.S.-backed forces to basically fire at the crowd or kill people in the crowd. They've killed, they say, up to 1,000 people. I don't think that that's true. I think that, again, those numbers are probably inflated. But obviously some people have been killed. This is not because Israel is just killing indiscriminately into the crowd. They are trying to ship food into Gaza. They are trying to feed people, and Hamas doesn't want this to happen. It does not need to be this way. People don't seem to understand. They want to condemn Israel for trying to feed the Palestinians. Meanwhile, at the same time, they won't call for Hamas to surrender. When Hamas is doing the killing, Hamas is starving the people. Hamas is not allowing aid to flow freely into Palestine, because they do not want to lose their revenue stream, which is stealing the aid and selling it back to the people. So it's this whole thing we've watched. You just watch the coverage of this, blaming Israel over and over and over again. And I just want to ask people, what is your solution? Is it better? Or should Israel continue to fund the group that wants to kill them all because they won't allow other aid to flow into the country? Is it better that the U.S. and Israel try and give aid directly to the people while still fighting Hamas, or is it better to allow the UN in there so they can just fund the terrorist organization with all the aid? I don't think that that's the better solution. I do not think giving terrorists anything is a good solution to the problem. I like the old Reagan line, we are not going to negotiate with terrorists. I do not think that that is a thing we should do. So we should not give Hamas what they want, because what they want is terrible, and they are terrible, and they are an amoral, terrible, awful organization that should be decapitated and left to rot. That's what I think. Every single person in Hamas, every single person who calls for death to the Jews, I think that all of these people are bad, and I do not care if every single one of them is killed. I don't. I do not want a single person in Palestine who is not a terrorist to be harmed. I don't want a single person to starve. I do not want anyone innocent in the entire world to be harmed. But if you are a person who believes in jihad and wants to commit violence against other people, I do not care if something bad happens to you. I don't, because I think anyone who wants to perpetrate violence on other people who would just like to be left in peace, I'm not talking about self-defense. I'm not talking about just war. I'm talking about people who want to attack civilians and kill innocent people. You're the bad guy. And I'm not a pacifist. I do not think that the world needs a bunch of pacifism. I do not think that. I think that bad people need to be dealt with. And Hamas is the bad guy here. Israel is not the bad guy. I know we've spent years trying to make Israel seem like the bad guy. They are the only ones shipping aid to the people of Palestine. No one else is doing it. No one else is helping. No one else is organizing forces on the ground to feed the people. You're not seeing a bunch of Arab nations come with a coalition to try and feed starving people in Palestine. You're not seeing a bunch of Arab nations stepping up, offering to take in a bunch of refugees. You're not seeing these for a reason. It is Israel who is feeding by proxy, feeding their enemy. The people of Palestine do not really care for the Israeli people, but they are still feeding the force of the enemy combatant. There was a giant problem, by the way. People like to talk about World War II as though it was the most clear-cut war. Obviously, remember all these people who hate the American Eagle ad, they hate Nazis. There was a giant starvation problem in Germany towards the end of the war. They didn't have enough food. In Europe, in general, there was a starvation problem because of that war. What should we have done? Should we not have fought the war? Should we have given the Nazis a bunch of aid so that they could distribute it to the people of Germany? Of course not, because we were interested in wiping Nazism off the face of the earth. I think that's a good thing. You probably think that's a good thing. That's what Israel is trying to do. They are trying to walk a tightrope between keeping the civilian population alive and healthy and fighting a bunch of people who don't wear uniforms and embed themselves in civilian centers. It's an impossible thing. And if you have a better solution, please let me know what it is. Because if your solution is Israel should stop doing everything, you're living in a fantasy world. If you have a better idea of how Israel can kill Hamas and keep every single civilian in Gaza safe, I would love to hear it. But if you don't, then be quiet. You just be quiet. Stop your complaints. I don't know what to tell you. If you don't have a better solution, then you're just crying about the problem. And if you're just whinging, knock it off. It's not what adults do. Adults have solutions to problems. And again, you're allowed to have your solution. If your solution is Israel should stop, I'm just going to disagree with you. I don't think that's a real solution to the problem of fighting terrorism. You don't just stop. You have to go after them until they're gone. And I support Israel to do that. I still do. They've done some things in this war that I thought were mistakes, but they're still the good guys. There's still a good and bad side. There's not two bad sides. There's still a good guy. There's still a bad guy. And I'm still going to root for them. It's not their fault. And let's hope the starvation thing gets better. But again, look who's causing the problem. Do not just blame it on the Jews. And if that's your inclination, just for every problem in the world, do some self-reflection and change. Anyway, we're going to move on. Topic 3. What would that say? Okay, 28. Topic 3. Oh, my goodness, I talk a lot. All right. This is a quick one because we don't have a definite way that it's going to go one way or the other. But topic 3, let's celebrate the demise of cancel culture. I really think that as this last election showed us, the idea of cancel culture is going away. It is, I think, the wokeness or sort of the idea that we're just going to be offended by everything in the world. I think that is now no longer going to be as mainstream, or at least I hope so. I'm not 100% convinced of that, by the way. And I've said it many times. I have been talking about this before everyone else. before most people. I won't say everyone else. But I was writing articles about this a long time ago. Before we talked about woke, before we came up with the concept of cancel culture, I was writing articles about this because I saw it happen here in St. Louis. And I remember thinking, well, that's just insane to me. And by the way, at the time, I still consider myself a liberal. I would have even maybe called myself a progressive. I was on the left, and I was criticizing people on the left for wanting to deplatform speakers. I remember talking about this because the word deplatforming really came into popular culture, and I was already writing about it because I saw it happening to some people I really liked, and I didn't understand it, and I didn't understand how, as a liberal, someone who believes in free speech, that I saw this happening. And I remember I even got accused of it being my bugaboo. Oh, you're talking about this thing that doesn't really exist. And now everyone talks about it, or we have talked about it for years and years and years, cancel culture, wokeness, and all this, whatever, the woke mind virus. We talked about all this stuff, and I think it's finally going away. I think that the fight is starting to be won, and I have one data point to prove that more than anything else. The election of Donald Trump was won, but this other one is a big one. There's an organization called Media Matters, and it is a terrible, terrible organization. It was founded back in the 2000s, and it basically it exists to get Republicans, conservative, anyone on the right, it exists to make their lives worse by, quote unquote, fighting bias in the news, which means fighting Republicans in the news, which means trying to basically police everything that they do. And you can point to this organization as one of the starting pieces of cancel culture, because all the way back in 2007, which is before I would have been talking about this, they did this with Don Imus. And I remember this story, and you probably remember this story, even if you don't know who Don Imus is or was, and even if you never listened to a show a day in his life. I don't know anything about the guy. But I remember when it was a big deal, because his radio show, I think it was on Sirius XM. I think he had a radio show. I'm vaguely remembering this because, again, I never listened to it. But back in 2007, he had this show, and he called I think it was the Rutgers girls basketball team, a bunch of nappy-headed hoes. That was the quote that he used. He called them a bunch of nappy-headed hoes. And they took this clip, Media Matters took this clip, they played it, they sent it to all his advertisers. They basically got Don Imus canceled for using this phrase. They said, oh, it's racist, or it's whatever it is, and all these advertisers, they pulled money, and then the corporation fired him, and he lost his radio show. And at the time, I don't remember what I thought about this because it's a long time ago. But it was the start of this thing that Media Matters began doing, which is they would go after the advertisers of conservatives. They do this with conservatives today. They've done it throughout history. There's a history of them. They went after Rush Limbaugh, I think Glenn Beck. They've done this to Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire. They do this all the time. And they're far leftist. All you have to do is look at their website and read their stuff. And basically everything, it'll be the thing where Donald Trump says something, and it has a little tiny exaggeration or not a white lie, but he'll say something, mischaracterize something. It'll be like, oh, say something, and no, I have the biggest crowd size in history. Who cares? And then they'll go, Donald Trump, 82 million Pinocchios and pants on fire, and he's a big, big liar, and they write these giant articles about him because he said something and he exaggerated or he did this thing, and they make him out to seem the worst person in the world for every little thing he does. And they do this for every conservative out there. And what they do is, whenever you say something that's even remotely controversial, they contact your advertisers, they try and get your money pulled from the show, and they try and get you canceled. And they've been doing this for years. Their organization this is my data point, by the way. Their organization is in trouble. They may go bankrupt because they are being sued by a bunch of people, but this big one is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is suing them because they released a thing. They basically contacted his advertisers after he took over X, which was Twitter at the time. He took over Twitter, Elon Musk, and basically they said, hey, there's a rise in hate speech on this platform. And this rise in hate speech, especially anti-Semitism, is contributed to these things that Elon Musk is doing, and do you really want your advertising dollars going to posts like this? So they contacted a bunch of advertisers who advertised on the platform, and they said, look, your ad appeared next to white supremacist content. How do you feel about that? And a bunch of advertisers pulled their advertising from X. So Elon Musk sued them and said that they were doing a bad thing because that was not true, that the rise in quote-unquote hate speech was not actually that big, and that they were manufacturing this. And it looks like he was absolutely right. I can't imagine he is not going to win this lawsuit, because it turns out what Media Matters did was they created a whole bunch of accounts. And these accounts that they created exclusively followed people who were saying what we would call very, very far-right content, but mostly following people who were known anti-Semites or made radical comment, and then just gaming the algorithm over and over and over again until they came up with advertisements next to something hateful. Then they would take those and send them to the advertisers. But they were gaming the system to do this. They weren't just, it wasn't like they logged onto Twitter one day and scrolled down and saw white supremacist content next to an advertisement. They deliberately manufactured algorithms, or manufactured an algorithm in these blank accounts to get to a point where they wanted to get. So the FTC is investigating them, as well as this lawsuit with Elon Musk, which they are going to lose, and it's a big deal. And they've already had to reduce staff at the company, and they're on the verge of declaring bankruptcy. So this terrible organization, whose entire job is to lie and ruin conservative media, is about to go bankrupt. That's my data point that says that cancel culture is on the way out, because they used to be a George Soros-funded. By the way, there are people who say that invoking the name George Soros itself is anti-Semitic, as though I'm insinuating that he's doing something bad because he's Jewish, as though I just spent all this time defending Israel. No, George Soros funds bad organizations because he has bad political policy. And he funded this organization, which is a terrible organization. So George Soros gave $1 million at one point. They're on the verge of bankruptcy. I don't think they're going to get bailed out. I think they're going to lose this lawsuit, and I think that they are going to go bankrupt. So we can all celebrate. I'm not convinced that cancel culture is out. I'm not convinced that deplatforming is going away, but I think this is a pendulum swing. And I think that it swung too far in one direction, and now it's swinging back. It may overcorrect, but I'm hoping we wind up somewhere in the middle. I think that it's a good thing that we do not try and just ruin every single person's life. By the way, this is a good rule moving forward, because I'm 34. If you're out there, you exist in the world, and you're somewhere around my age, you're 30s, late 20s, or older, you're 40, 50, 60, think back to when you were a child or a teenager or early 20s, and all the dumb things that you did, all the dumb things you said, the stupid things you joked about with your friends. The difference between you and every single person who's coming up right now is that when the people who right now are 12, 13, 14, 15, when they're 30, every stupid thing that they did is going to be in someone's cloud somewhere, saved in a video or a photo or a screenshot of a chat or a Snapchat, whatever it is. And every single person in the world is going to be subject to being canceled, which means that no one is. It's kind of like the nuclear option. And I hope that that's the case, because we're going to realize that every single person says and does stupid things when they're kids, and they need some grace, because you got to grow. I'm sure there are things I said when I was a kid that are horrible. I know, for example, that I not made fun of, but I know, for example, I made fun of like gay jokes or something like that. And I've never in my entire life, even when I was in high school, I've never had a problem with gay people in my entire life. But I'm sure I've made jokes that were terrible when I was younger. And, what if every single one of them was recorded and then read back to you in a transcript in some court of law? You'd say, oh my God, this guy's a monster. And the reality is that every person in the world probably has a string of things that you could read off or show, or a picture or a rant, or you got angry and you said something to a friend of yours, whatever the case may be. So we have to hope that this goes away, or everyone in the world is going to be canceled. And maybe if everyone in the world can be canceled, then no one should be canceled. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm sure it's going to find its equilibrium. It'll be somewhere in the middle. We just need to wait for that pendulum to finish swinging, because I've been fighting for at least, oh man, when was that? 2013? Probably 2013. So 12 years now. 12 years I've been writing about this one in particular topic, and I'm ready to write about something new. So let's hope it ends here. I'm not convinced it's going away tomorrow, but I think this is a good sign. Anyway, as always, I want to leave it there for the week. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down in the comments below. As always, the comments really help for whatever reason, boost the algorithm, especially on YouTube. Likes and comments are actually a big deal. So I always appreciate it whenever somebody leaves a like or a comment. And if you leave a comment, I will get back to you, especially on YouTube, because YouTube is where it makes the difference right now. So if the YouTube videos do well, everything else is fine. So leaving comments on YouTube is a big deal. Leaving likes on YouTube is a big deal. Facebook, for whatever reason, the traffic just doesn't matter. Their political content does not do traffic on Facebook for pages like mine. But YouTube, it still does. Rumble, it still does. And Spotify, it still does. So I don't know if many people know this. You can actually leave comments on Spotify podcasts, which there's like a chat feature on Spotify podcasts. It's kind of weird. Not a lot of people use it, I feel like, but it is there, by the way, just so you know. Anyway, we're going to leave it there for the week. I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I will catch you next Friday.